welcome back, everyone. So, uh, it occurs to me that there seems to be some kind of misunderstanding. I think that there's different layers to the alt-right, or the sort of neo-Nazi alt-right categories. I think the alt-right has done, and I hate to give them credit on this, but credit is given where credit is due. They've done a really good job with their PR and being manipulative. I've seen such PR stunts like this particular video right here. That particular video is not really, they're not lying about things. They're talking about things that are happening, but it's being entirely exaggerated. And I'm not going to get into that video and debunking that. I'm going to focus more so on something else. So I literally found myself having a dialogue with a legit self-proclaimed neo-Nazi. And I see some differentiating opinions, actually, between the alt-right and actual, hardcore neo-Nazis. But I think that gap is deliberate. I think the PR pushers, the propagandists, want it that way. I think the whole design is to try and get people to come to their side with kind of a veil, kind of a false hopes and promises type skew to the whole thing. So, I received this comment in my comments section.
I am alt-right, and I'm not against you. In fact, a lot of my kind would find you to be very tame compared to others. You use logic as opposed to your counterparts.
And you know what? To the person who made that comment, I really appreciate comments like that, and I'm glad that you think that of me, and I have no problem with you being on my channel. This isn't about you specifically. This is about neo-Nazi ideology, to which I've had several alt-right people say that they're not racist, they're not homophobic, they just want an ethno-state. This is coming from a white nationalist that I know personally. They just generally believe that they have no problem with any other races or anything like that. They don't have a problem with it. They just literally think that the whole social political landscape, this divisiveness that's occurring, is because these different cultures, as it were, are incompatible. So he's not looking for domination, control, eradication, or anything like that. And it's while as warped as I see that, because I've seen multiculturalism and I've seen it work. If you've lived in the United States, you've lived around multiculturalism your whole life, unless you're in a very rural area. So if you live in a big city, despite some outbreaks, and they've literally been some, it's not there's not riots breaking out in the streets all the time, all over the place, 24/7. In the United States alone. And this is not a thing that's happening. I can find no evidence that literally the white race is under attack. Okay, that is something that is being blown out of proportion. It's being exaggerated by people the PR propagandists to try and sway people over onto their side. Has the left abandoned you? Do they make you feel ostracized? They make you feel like you should feel guilty for being a heterosexual middle-class white male? Well then, slap on an armband and come on over, brother. Well, unfortunately, I think that there's this divide between people who go around saying, I'm alt-right neo-Nazi. It depends on what tier level they are, how far deep into it they really are. And then, like, a staunch, clear, like, deep into it neo-Nazi, which I had a conversation with, like, a very civil, diplomatic discussion. And, I was very upfront and honest, saying, I'm just trying to get information straight from the horse's mouth. I don't want to read through blogs and such like that, trying to find this information. I want to hear it directly from the source. What is it that you think? And while, I did have a conversation with that person in the comment section of the screen cap that I showed you about, I really appreciate that and all. But in all honesty, if the alt-right kind of neo-Nazi type philosophy got their way, I am not disillusioned. I know that I would be chucked in the fire. I know that would be a thing. Well, they say, well, we don't have a problem with homosexuality. We just don't want media presence, gay pride parade and marches, teaching of tolerance and acceptance, probably public display of affection as well. Basically, you don't want to hear, see, or speak of it. Well, that's going in the closet. Well, no, you don't have to hide who you are, just none of the aforementioned things. Well, that's going back in the closet, and that's not where I want to be. Now, I'm going to explain this bit real quick. I was actually going to put it in a different video, but I decided to put it in this one instead. I find this interesting. Supposedly, one of the third world nations that are waging war against the white race is Islam. It's the world of Islam. Okay, well, did you know that the countries in Islam that are against homosexuality? This is what I find interesting, so pay attention, alt-right people. It's not the actual sex act itself that they're against, not entirely. Depending on where you are, too. This is entirely dependent on that. But believe it or not, a lot of these places are not against using children as sexual objectifying children sexually. There was actually a story of a soldier, I think this was in the Pakistan area, not sure exactly where, but a soldier. There was a boy that was part of a sex ring operation, and young boys being, we're talking young boys, between ages of 5 to 10, being involved in sex ring operations because there's a lot of poverty and this is a way for them to make money, being taken advantage by these older Pakistani, warlords. They were bucking him repeatedly, and the soldier couldn't take the stand of the screams any longer. And it is, orders that when you are working for the military that you cannot intervene. You can't do it. You're not allowed to do it, despite, even though their culture is completely different than ours. But he did intervene because he couldn't stand listening to this little boy scream bloody murder any longer. So he intervened, and he got a dishonorable discharge. To which my response to that was, that is the most honorable, dishonorable discharge I've ever heard of. Well, come to find out from other military people, because I was like, I thought the whole homosexuality thing was illegal in their countries. And I was told, yes, it is, but it's weird. It's so different. Basically, it's okay if it's meant to emasculate or to kind of dehumanize, for the doing it for the sake of let's say, humiliation purposes. Fucking another guy in the ass for those reasons, well, that's perfectly acceptable. Like I said, the child objectivity, that's acceptable. The romantic aspect, the marriage, the child adoption, to two people of the same gender expressing not just physical attraction, but romantic attraction for each other, that's their problem. So I want you to think long and hard about that. What you consider to be deviant is the romantic aspect. And look at how Islam treats it. Like some of these, like not all of Islam, not all of the Middle East, okay? But certain areas do treat it this way, where it's like, I would consider using anal rape as a form of humiliation or emasculating a person to be way more inhumane and way more degenerate than two consenting adults. We're not just doing it for, like, it's about a romantic endeavor for somebody of the same gender, and so they express that through the physicality of what is known as gay sex. I find that to be far less deviant than using it to emasculate, humiliate, or using a child as a sex object. And I think you would agree. But see, I think there's a huge gap between these staunch neo-Nazis and the alt-right. Because I have clear-cut confirmation from talking to this neo-Nazi that not only would, I mean, goth would probably not be you would not be able to express yourself individualistically under the empire that they wish to deem. Like how many alt-righters that are subscribed to my channel agree with Pol Pot or Mao Zedong or any of these dictatorship crap? I mean, how many of you are actually in support of that? Do you know why the neo-Nazis are in support of North Korea? Well, here, let's take a small dip, just a tiny little, like, just dipping your toe just a little bit in the water, and you'll see for yourself as I quote some passages from the conversation I had with the neo-Nazi themselves. We are totalitarians for the most part. Anything we deem as degenerate or as having detrimental effect on society will be crushed without prejudice. Whether any of those things that you listed has that effect is what would determine our opinion of it. What we advocate for is a dictatorship with an authoritarian body who has the power to keep that dictatorship in line. If the dictator were to say open borders, that authoritarian body would liquidate said dictator. We're into aesthetics, and so black nail polish and spike collars is what most people would be against. I am not filled with disillusionment. I am a degenerate to you as a homosexual. If the alt-right did get what they want, I'd be thrown into an oven, let's be honest. I don't want to live in secret, I just want equality, not privilege, just equality. I'm ashamed of what has happened. After civil rights were won, the left kept going like it didn't happen and started inventing new problems that aren't problems at all. I respect your right to see me as degenerate, as long as you respect my right to be me. Live and let live. You do you, let me be me. I don't believe in indoctrinating children pretty much on anything. The foundations of my philosophy are: I believe in choices, not one's ability to impose one's will on others against their own will. This philosophy is pretty much the foundation of liberalism. What a lot of people see as the left or liberals today are on the left, I'll give you that, but they are the authoritarian left. Despite differences in philosophy, you don't seem like a bad person, although I cannot get behind the idea of terminating a person who is cognitively aware of their own existence, and wish this was not a part of your group's mantra. I find it funny that many perceive the death of someone of cognizance to be okay, but not one of no cognizance. Then see people complain about overpopulation and advocate against homosexuality because people aren't reproducing. I respect you as a person and wish you no ill. I have always stood by the concept of attacking ideas, not people. This has been an interesting exploring the ideology. I appreciate your civility. The people who would have you liquidated represent the shock troops. They'll liquidate anything they are told to. Moreover, the people trolling your channel are doing exactly as they've been tasked to do, to make it known to anyone who would oppose us that we aren't fucking around anymore, and that no one will be spared if they don't bend the knee to us. By casting such a wide net, there may be occurrences of some people who shouldn't be targeted, but they've been given the order to seek out and destroy anything and everyone who doesn't align with us in the pursuit of making people choose a side and furthering the divide until it all snaps from the tension. The only reason the upper echelons like myself would classify you as a problem would be in relation to things like marches, adoption of children, marriage, media presence, promotion or focus on homosexuality to the public or through academia by any means, gay nightclubs or organizations, etc. In other words, you can be you so long as we don't have to hear anything about it. Anyone who sides with us will be shown favor so long as said favoring can be substantiated. We are happy to recognize people like Milo so long as he shilled for us, but he couldn't keep his race mixing or his flamboyance to himself, and has since been ostracized. I don't believe you would have to live in secret, but we would not tolerate the aforementioned things due to my earlier comments pertaining to things we are tired of. We don't hold ill will towards people who align with us, although the same cannot be said for non-whites who align with us. For the most part, we draw a hard red line on that unless they absolutely capitulate to our wants. Being ashamed of the left shouldn't be your reaction. You should be violently angry with them for helping lead us to where we are today, which is why I would tell you to, at the very least, align yourself as close as possible to us, because we are the ones who are going to obliterate both of them and all the damage they have caused this nation. You can be you, but it must be recognized that the whole of our nation must be preserved, and that its outliers does not take precedent over the whole. Again, you are free to do you so long as your individuality does not interfere with the foundational tenets we are mobilizing to unleash. You don't seem like a bad person either, nor do I have any wish to see you liquidated based on the conversation we've had, but it appears we have fundamental issues as it pertains to multiculturalism, something we absolutely will not tolerate from anyone. Allowing these ideals to be held is a major reason why we have ended up where we have today, and why we will continue to ramp up our efforts towards accelerationism like there's no tomorrow. And I will leave it at that on this one.
So as you can see,
these people they are totalitarians. This guy self-identifies as a totalitarian. They admire North Korea for their ironclad authoritarianism. And basically the idea is not preserving what our founding fathers wanted, which was staunchly against authoritarian regimes. You're not talking about just creating, like just making America white and keeping the Constitution and all that. Individualism dies. And freedom of speech dies. They want a white version of North Korea. They are totalitarians. Ironclad authoritarianism. That was an actual screenshot of what a neo-Nazi had said to me in correspondence to questions that I was asking them. So now I want you to think about the reasons why you say, well, you're rational. Then you're more rational than your counterparts. But would you be shocked if I told you that there are far more liberals than you think that are on the same page as me? There's a lot of them that are. Quite a bit understand the difference between radical jihadists and the moderate Muslims and understand that radical jihadism is a terrible thing. Did you know that the moderate Muslims in Britain are speaking out against Sharia courts? Did you know that? So make no mistake, the puppet masters that are in control of the PR propagandist alt-right crap that you're hearing may have you perceivably look at things like homosexuality and go, oh, it's not really that big of a deal. But it is. And I have no disillusionment that if this ethno-state was ever present, like if it actually were to happen, I am not disillusioned for 1 second that I would be one of the ones hunted down. I'm not disillusioned by that. But last I checked, we still lived in a democratic republic. We have a constitution. We are a democracy that has a constitution, if you like, republican, or republic. And I'm really quite fine. I'm really quite fine with living in the United States. I like the freedoms that we have here. I enjoy them, and I enjoy the tenets of free speech. And I have no intention of attacking Second Amendment rights. And I even understand the reason why the United States has made it legal to form a militia. All these things were done to make it almost as difficult as humanly possible for dictatorships to own to reign over the United States or the U.S. citizens ever again, like what happened with the British Royal Monarchy, which British Royal Monarchy no longer has power. So I want you to think about this concept. Well, we like you because you're rational. So think about the counter arguments that I've made against pedophiles. Because I'm deeply against pedophiles. In fact, I'll give you this screenshot here. This is a pedophile that I personally have put behind bars. So I've done a lot of good work I've done a lot of things that you would probably see me as being good for society. I am not a degenerate. I am not pulling away at the threads of things that keep society mobilized. I am advocating for equality, not privilege, okay? Nobody should have privilege over another person. We should have equality, equal rights, equal opportunity. And I think you'd be surprised at how many liberals agree with that. There's really, like, the SJW alt-left is a small group with a very loud voice. So, no. I'm pro-free speech, anti-political correctness, and anti-SJW, but yet I am liberal. I'm anti-authoritarian liberal. But there's some parts of me that do stem in the right field, such as the anti-authoritarian right, which have to do with individuality and individual expression. So I want you to think about, like, all these things that I've done on my channel to debunk bad ideas, including bad ideas that come from the left that alt-right people seem to enjoy. And think about that the puppet masters that are controlling the PR propagandists of which you consume would have me eradicated. Like it or not. You don't have to like it. That's just how they view it. That's their perspective. I personally would not like to live under an authoritarian regime. I don't know about you, to each their own. And to which I would say, if you don't want to live under a country that was founded under the premise of freedom, you have every right, living in a free society that we live in, to move to a country that does participate in ironclad authoritarianism. No one's stopping you from moving to a country that has that. But I really wanted to make people aware of this, and I think just centrists, anti-SJW, like rational liberals, and even right-leaning people, not alt-right, but normal right-leaning people, just average right-leaning people, libertarians and conservatives and such, have contributed to the talking points of the alt-right and the neo-Nazi movement. I saw a meme the other day that was saying that there's a picture of a soda fountain, and it said racism bad on one of the sodas, and then it said fuck white people, and both of the buttons were being pressed, and it was going into a cup that said Democrats. And I couldn't help but think to myself, this type of stuff is absolutely feeding into the narrative that pushes the agenda for the alt-right. Because the more and more right-leaning people feel like, well, because I'm a white heterosexual male, I'm attacked. The more they feel ostracized and the more they feel attacked, the more susceptible they are to being persuaded by the alt-right talking points. And I think that that's absolutely the case. I think anything that is being racially divisive is pushing people to extremes on both sides. And then you have the people in the middle that are on neither side of the extreme. And I think that the people who do this kind of neo-skepticism really kind of need to wake up to it, is that you could be potentially pushing people towards an extreme and not even realize it. So the alt-right has been very clever in that, and I give them props for that. However, to a rational, logic-minded person, I'm not falling for it. One of the statements I made to him is, If you do take over, I guess I will have no choice but to capitulate to your demands, as it would mean my survival. But until then, I don't have to, because right now we live in a free society, and many people on both the left and the right, and even centrists, enjoy that freedom. And even in places where you will find ironclad authoritarianism, you will find insurgency to the point of people literally forfeiting their lives to try and obtain the freedom that we have here in Western civilization. They want it. They want it so bad they're dying for it. They're crying for freedom, and yet no one hears a sound. So this is something that I want you guys to really think about. For those of you on the alt-right, do you really want to live under ironclad authoritarianism? Is that what you signed up for? A white version of North Korea? Do you really think that I deserve to die? The process is you. The process is yours. But in all honesty, after watching that Identity Europa propagandist crap, I couldn't help to think that this could all be summarized by just calling it white noise paranoia. So do not think that people are not aware of the issues. I'm absolutely aware of the issues of Sharia courts popping up, and that is inappropriate. But guess what? It's not just white people that have a problem with that. There's a lot of people, including other Muslims, that have a problem with it. Well, you know, I'm pretty sure that a lot of my content pisses people off depending on where you sit on the spectrum. I just try to look at things from a philosophical perspective and what makes sense. It does not make sense to live under an authoritarian regime when one appreciates freedom, when one themselves is an anti-authoritarian. So, sorry if I pissed you off. But I'm just trying to tackle, even from the left, even leftist arguments that I find irrational. I try and debate these things from a philosophical perspective, not a political perspective, not as a political activist perspective, but from a philosophical perspective. And so that's why I ask you guys to think about this and what that actually means, and is that actually what you bargained for and actually what you wanted? So, let me know what you think in the comments section below. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bell button on any channel you're subscribed to. And with that, I'm out.
Get us me. I think we're somewhat paranoid. Something in our chest turns like a